Alright, hi guys. Long time no see, back with another video. Um, Today I'll be presenting branded Ishizu 60 card pile. I played a little bit of this during the Duelist Cup and I guess tested a little bit in Diamond 1. And I guess maybe if you've seen through the news, you may have seen that it might be one of the best branded variants, or at least a good meta call into what's currently being played. So here's the list. I won't really explain everything. Um, I'll just have you know that space is really tight, so if the ratios look really off, and also that I feel like I'm always constantly experimenting with this deck. Um, the ratios seem really off. Um, yeah, there is not that much space. Um, so I guess the TLDR, Maxi and Gamma, I initially didn't have these in my initial list, but I decided to add them in just as like more non-engine. And they could help you win you games on their own. They're pretty powerful cards. Only a 2-2-3 ratio for the Patrick engine. I guess the logic behind this is that technically drawing parts of the too much of the Patrick engine and seeing them with the issues in hand doesn't actually do anything for you early in a turn. So these cards are definitely strong and nice to have. And you could max out on them. It probably won't feel too bad. But yeah, I cut down on it because I just need the space. 3 Keeper of Dragon Magic. This card is actually pretty helpful for you, especially if you draw them with Ishizus to dump cards out of the hand. But that's pretty much as far as the usefulness of this goes. It's just another Aluber. I guess it's a little bit better than Kit because Kit has you return a card. Kit is better as an extender, but she's pretty terrible as a normal summon. I'm running Mercuria in here only as a tech spot. If you don't know, cards that mention Follow of Albaz, so Mercuria, Kit, Albaz himself, Albion, they can all be searched off of this card called Branded in High Spirits. And Branded in High Spirits, basically, you send a card from your extra deck that matches the type. So for example, if I have a fairy in hand, I have an Ishizu in hand, I can use Branded in High Spirits to send a fairy that has 2,500 attack or defense and is level 8. Construct is one of those targets. And I can add a monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz or is Fallen of Albaz. And discard the card that I revealed. So you can add Mercurier off of High Spirits actually. There's a funny line where if you have a dragon monster in hand, you can send a dragon, so like Albion, and you could add Mercurier, so you basically get 2 interruptions. You get to search Branded in red, and you get to add Mercurier. All without having to use a Mirror Jade Banish, and that could be pretty nice. Initially I ran 3 of Branded in High Spirits to make this deck work, because I believe that using Branded in High Spirits really takes advantage of the Ishizu cards. And while that's nice and all, you do miss out on a lot of power cards and a lot of space for other tech options. And Branded in High Spirits may not feel that good if you don't draw them with other Ishizus or dragons. So I cut down in that, which is why it's at 1. It's the ratio that some decks were using in the Duelist Cup, at the top of the Duelist Cup that I saw. But yeah, 3 Albion. I think 3 Albion is nice, especially if you're getting milled out, or like you want to see this card more. Like, I don't know if I agree with winning this card at 1, because let's say you do use grass or something and you mill like 20 cards off the top of your deck. You kind of want to hit an Albion or Retribution so you could add back Branded Fusion, but if you don't actually see any of those cards, you could definitely hit a situation where you have a dead grass, and that nobody likes that. Yeah, a bunch of 1-card stars like Foolish, Gold Sark. I have Theater as an extension for Kit. Yeah, Banishment in here. Yeah, not too crazy or anything. I'm running Sprint because technically you could use Sprint in end phase to special kit, which could be useful, though it doesn't really come up that often. But in one of the duels I actually did use Sprint, the effect actually, to clear a board, and you'll see it in action. But yeah, that's pretty much the list. And let's go over some replays. So the replays are definitely like pretty old. Some of them are actually from like maybe up to 2 weeks ago. But yeah. Some of the cards may not be exactly the same, but I hope it's at least a bit relevant. So we have Runic Sprite as our first game here. And if I recall correctly, this guy kind of combos like crazy. Draw 3. Okay, no, never mind. It's a different game. But yeah, he ends on basically 1, 2, maybe 3, 4 interruptions or so. And I draw Brandon High Spirits. So first, you know, Allure Darkness. Technically, what I could have done is use Branded High Spirits to thin my deck out first. For example, sending the Medora, so I get, for example, access to kit. And you know, I thin my deck and make my, I guess, draws higher quality. But that's a small optimization I could have done. I shotgun the Allure. Move a duplicate edge jump, I don't really care about that. No grass. I hit Nagito. This is when I was playing the Millers. But I don't actually suggest playing the Millers because they can be pretty risky. Yeah. And for some reason, I guess he's scared. I wouldn't actually suggest you to do this, especially versus a Runic matchup, because if you mill them into Runic cards, you could actually allow them to start plussing. And you kind of don't want to give them Runic like opportunities for them to like draw 3. And in addition, like Branded does not necessarily have very high quality mills, unless you combine it with more engines like Fluffle or Shadolls or something like that. So running the Millers can be kind of risky. You could run Kelbic because he has a bounce, which is actually a pretty good like hand trap effect, but yeah, use Retribution to add back the Brandon Fusion, which is what you should usually be doing with that card. Yeah, normal summon Albaz. I'm basically fishing around to see, because he already used the red. If he has, I mean, I still have extension through Branded Fusion, so I'm basically testing whether or not, like, he just has the out, right? Like, and I also get to dump the Edgem Chain. But if this goes through, like, it's almost just a wrap. He called buys my Albaz, but I actually use the Medora effect to shuffle back the targeted copy of Albaz back into the deck so that it essentially resolves with that effect, because the target isn't there anymore, so he can't banish. And this is partially why called buy is actually pretty. It's almost like sorta kind of bad against like a meta where shufflers exist, because if you called buy with shufflers existing in the game, I mean, your opponent will just shuffle the monsters back, so you can't call buy anything, right? And this works the same with even like hand traps. So that's like pretty unfortunate. He Desperation IPs, but he goes into Goddess, so that kind of stalls him a turn. Yeah, I believe in this scenario, I did not realize it did not have a extra patchwork. Or not, I didn't have targets for patchwork. So I sort of panicked here and used the Mirror Jade Banish, but I forgot that I had opening. I didn't technically need to do that, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah. And I basically use Kit here to add back the Retribution. I think my logic here behind this was I don't really have like much to work with in terms of like interruption. I mean, I guess I could have tried for a pop too with Adlib, right? But yeah, I could use the branded Retribution to oh wait, no, I do have because I. But yeah, I could use the branded Retribution as a way to, I guess, add an additional negation if my opponent does want to use like a runic, for example, to a special monster. And so, like always, versus runic, you should definitely be going for pop 2 chimeras. If you go for pop 1, your opponent, unless you know like your opponent doesn't have like any like runics to respond with, like they could just summon Hugin and prevent the destruction of the field spell. But as long as you go for a pop 2, even if they summon the Hugin, there's no way that she can protect both cards at once, because it's not legal. So I'm allowed to target the unaffected goddess as well as the field spell, and now I just basically have to beat over the goddess and win. And I summoned Branded Sword here, or I set Branded Sword here, and you get to see the funny little side effect that nobody really uses of this card. Oops, oops, oops. Just a bunch of Mirror Jades. GG. I think the one thing I forgot to mention about these piles is that I'm actually not sure how well they fare versus like standard 40 card variations. You do get more unique hands, and you do have the opportunity to play a lot of different engine pieces. But at the same time, that variability could work against you. You know, you have a harder time drawing all the specific cards that you want, like Branded Fusion or specific board breakers. But it does allow you to play the Ishizus without feeling pretty bad. And obviously it did place well in the current or the very last Duelist Cup. So there's that. I'm not even too sure if it's the best variation, but I guess the only way is to try and find out yourself. Oh, I know this duel. So I send Adlib like usual. I'm actually usually pretty greedy. You could, if you feel threatened by a hand trap, or you need a Lubellion to resolve, you could send Comedy, but I almost just send Adlib every single time because I'm crazy like that. Just, you know, perma-disrespecting hand traps, right? But my opponent gammas me in Lubellion, which I don't actually have an answer for because, well, I already triggered Tragedy earlier in the turn to get to Foolish, right? So there's nothing I really could have done there. But you'll see here, I actually have access to one play. And that's Chimera. And it draws into Kit and Grass. Like, this is like 60 card deck. Like, drawing two, like, I mean, I guess Kit is only sort of good. I mean, I never went into Mirror Jade this turn, so I can't use Adlib to revive anything useful. That represents interruption, I mean. But Grass is just absolutely insane. Oh, and this is what I mean by running the millers. Like as you can see, I don't actually hit anything except shufflers. And when I activated the Agido, it doesn't actually mill me anything. It milled me like what? Called by Branded Fusion, Patchwork, and High Spirits, and then another High Spirits. Though it did give me some matchup knowledge that they're actually playing Virtual World, but it is also a little bit bad because I milled virtual names for them. Including Nian Yan. So that's kind of annoying. Like the millers are not that good, in my opinion, because they can be pretty risky, especially blind. So I basically go for a 2-pop Chimera play here. One thing I know like from a friend that does play Virtual World a little bit is that they kind of need like, or like how he mentioned it, is that they kind of need like names on the board to work with. They're not really like a 1-card combo deck, so removing like names that they have access to is like really helpful for like limiting their plays. So that's kind of how I think about it. Yeah, you see that they can't play through this. Yeah, and if you look at this, they basically have 3 cards in hand. I have a big beefy Chimera, and I basically just drew Branded Fusion by specialing the Aluber off of the ad libitum for follow-up, which happens sometimes. This is like actually not a bad play if you don't expect to die that turn. And I even draw Gamma, so I mean, in case my board gets wiped, if that ever happens, you know, I have a way to push back. And people seem to really forget this secret effect. I don't know why like people forget this all the time, but you'll see. He tries to attempt to target the Guardian Chimera, but he realizes he actually cannot do that because Guardian Chimera, there's a polymerization in the graveyard. When that happens, you can't target it with card effects. Yep. And you'll see that I skipped the replay there, but that's because I'm leaving that probably for another video, to explain how to get probably the best like branded end board you could. But yeah, this duel will be of my 45-ish card deck list that I also uploaded. I got like a 19 win streak with it. And yeah, this is it. Not branded Ishizu, but I hope it's still useful. Oh, I didn't mention. Mercurier is actually low-key a little bit good into Runic. I mean, it is a little bit of a dead draw, but if they banish it, you basically get free cards in hand. It also allows you to search out Albaz, which kind of technically prevents your opponent from banishing all your copies of it. Which I definitely even had happen to me once, even in 60 cards. So yeah, that's kind of nice. God. And this is probably the most insane sprite boards I've ever seen. he actually uses the Runic engine to draw into more sprite names, which allows him to further extend off the initial board that he had, which was Elf and IP. Or, yeah, I think he had Elf and IP originally. So basically he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. And then we'll later figure out, I think he has a Runic in hand, I don't remember, but he has around 6 to 7 interruptions because we'll later find out that he actually has Ash Blossom as well. And funnily enough, I'm actually able to survive through this board because I top deck Super Poly. Oh, he didn't have Ash, he had Max C, but he draws into Ash. Anyways, I don't know how I got this lucky again. You'll see here why Super Poly for Earth Golem is actually, pretty good. Technically, if you're running Starving Venom, you could also do the same thing too, but Elf has a chance to revive Masquerena. Though that probably wouldn't be as good, because they'll have to remove an Elf or a Carrot or a Red. Yeah. I'm running the Earth Golem package. Oh, and the Pro of Sword. If your Mercurier gets banished, or for example, let's say Runic banishes your Albazes, you can use Sword and banish Sword to add back that Albaz or a monster that mentions it. Which means that it could kind of help you in grind games and getting cards back that you kind of need. Realistically, I probably could have saved it, but whatever. Yeah, because I just banished it anyways to save the Albaz, but yeah. Okay, so I grab Kit here. Go Albaz, Pitch, Chain. This basically puts them on a potential polyplay. Actually go for Jin Buster. Yeah, and Jin Buster doesn't destroy. So they see me add the polys. Obviously, Carrot has to negate this. There's nothing that they can do. And this is pretty much like how you want to play this. Well, I guess technically, I should have expected that maybe they could have Ash Blossom. So maybe I could actually go for a Branded Fusion to bait and then go Chimera second. But to try and see if I can draw better cards after that to try and see and push, but yeah, I don't know. The Branded Fusion is gonna get negated, but yeah. But luckily, as you can see here, I basically traded pretty well with their board. Pretty much forced all the interruptions that I needed, and I just need to attack. I won't be able to clear everything, but being able to get rid of most of their monsters is good enough for me. And he goes for Smashers here. I mean, you'll see why he does this. I'm not too sure if he should have shotgunned this or not, but yeah, so he removes his red, but I think the reason why he does that is because he kind of values, I guess, the Carrot in the Brandon matchup, because, Brandon's pretty spell-based, but he's also running more than one red, which is probably why he did that. So he has follow-up, does his thing, draws a whole bunch of cards. Now I have to contend with another board. Though luckily, one thing to notice is that because I was able to survive the first turn, there's nothing they could really end on. I mean, they already used Masquerena and Jin Buster, which are basically the two, I guess, front row based interruptions in terms of end board pieces they can make. So they don't really have anything that they could make off of this, except just sit there with the bodies. Technically, Elf can revive the IP. I don't think he, if I recall, I don't think he chooses to. Yeah, he goes for Hyperion instead, which is kind of weird. Oh, and I activate Branded Lost after searching it with Kit, because I already had Branded Fusion. I think realistically here, oh, okay, no, Branded Red wouldn't have been useful, but this is actually a mistake on the Sprite player's part. The ruling about Branded Lost is that it only negates activations, or not negates, but it prevents your opponent from responding. Well, I guess they can respond, but it just won't do anything. If the card would negate an activation. And this would occur on 2 instances. If, for example, like you activate Branded Fusion and go Lubellian Chain Link 1, your opponent will not be able to respond, because the Fusion Summon would be the last thing to occur. And your opponent would not be able to respond when a monster is Fusion Summoned that way. Also, that includes like on summon of the monster. So for example, I go Lubellian Chain Link 1, do all the stuff, and then summon Mirror Jade and immediately activates effect on the summon of that monster. They also cannot respond. But this actually does not prevent your Branded Fusion from being negated. Carrot negates effects, and Branded Lost does not provide protection for that sort of negation. But I actually baited out from the Sprite player. Honestly, it's pretty hard to know unless you like really like read into the cards. So yeah, bait that out. Luckily, he actually adds Freezing Curses, which I'm actually fine with. Yeah, hits my Rebellion. But the reason why I'm fine with this is that pretty much I just get bodies on the board. That's all I really care about. And I'm not really at threat of like dying. Oh, and I set a Fright for Patchwork. I added one actually thinking I could use it as well, which would have been like way more helpful, because he wouldn't have any of these. I would be able to push for damage as well as remove the rest of his level 2s. But I wasn't checking my banish pile. Yeah, but I believe I ran out of edge imps, so there's not. Yeah, I have 1 banished and 2 engraved, so this is kind of useless. But I shouldn't actually put this here because well, I guess it is technically bait for called by, but the opponent can, you know, draw into that Runic spell to pop my back row, which puts me at even lower cards, which is definitely not good. But I think one big thing to notice here is that it's turn 5. My opponent has like 5 cards in their extra deck, and they just went into the 3rd Sprite Elf. Like Sprite Runic has the ability to grind versus decks like crazy, but Branded Despia, like, I haven't actually been able to go through my plays like fully. I've just been able to survive and hold on, while my opponent has been like using resources like crazy and just tossing them out the window. So I'm actually like at the point where they have to get close to finishing me, or else they're going to be running out of gas. And this is that point. So actually called by the elf, and he chains Cross Out Designator. I actually thought the game would have been like maybe even close to over here. But there's one funny thing. He calls Psyframe Driver, and I think like what that told me at that time is that he wasn't running Called by the Grave. I remember checking some deck lists, and some of them didn't actually run Called by. And I think partially because they ran like maybe like more board breaker cards, like maybe they only ran Ash. Like some people were just running strictly Lava Golem for going second. But this guy seems to have traded that space for stuff like Gamma, Maxi, and Ash. So I guess he's not running Called by, so he's not able to cross out it, even though I guess he thought he had it. Yeah, so Runic Destruction's the card that I set. And they're just using cards for no reason. Luckily that adds me back in Alibur though. Yep. My opponent scoops. I just outgrinded Runic Sprite. Yeah, sometimes the important thing is not even needing to crack their board, but just to live. Because they don't have a battle phase, so as long as you don't die, and Branded Despia is pretty good. Alright, back to the pile deck, the Ishizu pile. And turns out I'm facing what is going to be Eldritch Stun. And he flips Shadow Imprisoning Mirror. Honestly, at the flip of this card, I thought I was going to scoop, but I decided to play through it anyways, and you'll see, like, I actually get a little bit rewarded for actually choosing to stay in this game. So I go for a Masquerade here. I mean, I could go for like a Coriatus or something. I mean, realistically, they're not going to be special summoning an extra deck monster that allows me to like revive this guy probably, but I mean, he's just a guy, right? Like 2500 beat stick that I could just use. You know, keeps my ad-lib in graveyard in case I need it. Yeah, I just try to hit for face while he doesn't have anything because I think he bricked. Oh. Okay, so the reason why I Masquerade I forgot was because the mirror negates activated effects. Masquerade is not an activated effect. It is a I guess it's like a continuous effect. So yeah. Yeah, I think if I recall, a mono Iwado like negates like activated effects, so you could still Masquerade under a mono. I think that's one of the interactions. I just completely forgot. But yeah, I basically threat him with the life point drain. I mean, he outs it anyway, so it's like whatever. But this actually puts him low enough. 2500 is definitely nothing to scoff at. It's definitely gotta play it careful. And then I tried going for a Branded Fusion to maybe wall up here. He just changed Solemn Judgment, so now he's at 1250. Actually kind of don't mind this. It puts him kind of low, but I still have like a ton of potential top decks that I could have that would be pretty good in this scenario. And, you know, of course, you know, like the baller I am, I just top deck grass, of course. Oh. Yeah, the reason why I go for Branded in red here is because I want to get the ad-lib. Because I actually recognize, like, depending on what these two cards are, like, I can technically, I might be able to push for game. And you'll see how I do it here. Yeah, so Masquerade chips 600. He's at 650. And he activates Dogmatica Punishment, but he doesn't know what I have set face down. And it's Forbidden Droplet. So Dogmatic Punishment states that you have to target, and then you send. But because like targeting is like the cost for the card, because I'm able to dodge the targeting of Dogmatic Punishment, he's not able to send cards like Entis to the graveyard to pop my field. Because of that, I'm able to both drain the attack points from the Eldritch, which puts him in lethal range, but I'm also able to dodge the Dogmatic Punishment so it doesn't pop anything. And he goes for Conquistador, but it's absolutely useless because I have opening. I was able to play under Shadow Imprisoning Mirror somehow. I do not know how I won that. Oh, I forgot this is a Runic Sprite. So you see, they'll... Or not Runic, or I guess it is Runic Sprite Ishizu. But you'll see the importance of shufflers in, like, versus a deck like this, where they mill you, but you have the ability to shuffle their cards back, which is pretty important. I mean, they can shuffle you back, but you limiting the Runic engine is also pretty hurtful as well. I guess I also completely like glazed over it, but most of these duels are just from Diamond. I mean, I didn't really record a lot of stuff from the Duelist Cup, but or I didn't really record anything at all because there's not anything really that high quality gameplay wise when I was playing it. And I only played like a little bit of it because well, I got to stage 2, played a little bit of stage 2, but I had plans for like on the weekend and other obligations, so I wasn't able to play as much as I wanted. Yeah, I think I hit like 17k points before I like wasn't able to play anymore, because you know, by the time I was able to get back on the Duelist Cup, there's no way, you know, I'm trying to hit like top 100 and I only have 17k points and the Duelist Cup closes in like 2 hours or whatever, right? There's no way. So yeah, most of these are just from Diamond. Oh, so basically, I guess I kind of want my grass to resolve. Yeah, so I just used Gold Sarcophagus to try and like maybe try and bait something, but you know, you should know what to negate. Yeah, and this sprite player does not take the bait. But instead, what he actually goes for is Entis. So he actually saves the carrot negate, but he manages to use Entis to pop the Lost, which is kind of annoying. But no, I still got Chimera. And so yeah, now he's forced to negate it because he knows that if he lets this through, I just pop him. But he lets me go battle phase to attack the IP. Go grass here, hit absolutely nothing. He goes a shuffler, shuffles back my cards, you know, whatever. And basically what I'm trying to do here is basically just get Snow out, try to flip something down, in hopes that maybe I could just disrupt their plays. And their setup for next turn. Yeah, so I flip it face down, wall up. I have a 2500 attack beat stick with 2 1800 bodies on board. Honestly, for them, I mean, they don't even have a battle phase, so I'm just setting up bodies for next turn. Unless they have some way to remove it all, but they don't really. Oh, I forgot. I don't think triggering the snow that early would have been that useful. Mostly because they're able to still flip the diviner. Um, yeah. I I mean, I guess it removes like the level boost, I think. No, level boost until the end of turn, but I don't know, it's whatever. I probably realistically could have saved the snow, but they would have like tried to force it out with the shufflers anyways. He negates one of my shufflers. Just the whole shebang. There's my cards, but he mills me into Medora. Which is actually like pretty good for me. And yeah, look at how the Ishizus just counter Runic. They go for a draw 3 and then you shuffle 3 so they don't get a draw. It's like the shufflers are just so ridiculous. I guess he goes for Elf Revive IP and then IP go into Unicorn. I guess his hope is that maybe that he can thin out the board that like threatens his stuff like Carrot the red from being attacked over. Ends up not being enough to wipe him out. Or ends up not being enough for him to wipe me out. So now basically, I just go battle phase anyways. That's pretty much the most useless unicorn in existence. He now doesn't have a spell negate. He basically has no interruptions on board except for maybe the runic. Or no, he doesn't because I shuffled his cards back. So I just go for a 2-pop Chimera. Yeah. And then I leave the Nightmare Unicorn on board because well, I guess I should have just popped Carrot because, you know, I get to deal more damage by attacking Unicorn, but it just so happens that I draw into Albaz and I haven't normal summon this turn. So this allows me to go into Mirror Jade, funnily enough. I set the Branded Fusion, but realistically I should have just kept it in my hand. Yeah, there's a... Trying to out this is like pretty difficult. And he happens to have a runic, so he gets to draw 3 anyways. He cycles his runic cards again for another draw 3. So I'm forced to basically just banish his cards. I guess like doing it this way, like he has level 4 on board. So like he needs to have starter or something to try and I guess bridge into like his sprite cards because he just uses normal summon. Doesn't actually matter, you know, freezing curses negate, it's whatever. And it turns out that he does not actually draw enough cards to be able to deck me out on my turn. I have 4 cards left. It honestly got really close. I don't know if he may have like missequenced his cards, but maybe there's a world that he actually gets me a deck out on there. But because he's not able to deck me out, basically the entire game is in my favor right now. And basically go for the 2-pop Chimera play. And this is mostly just because like he has a face-down back row and a Runic Fountain. I know that he has a ton of Runic cards in hand. So if I find some way to remove his back row, I can just, you know, attack on the monsters already on the field. I don't deny the draws, but I am able to get the pop off, so that means that the draws are pretty much useless and I can kill him this turn. funnily enough, this hand actually allows me to get to lethal, even though like my entire deck is gone, 0 cards. But I just happen to have Albion the Shrouded Dragon in hand with 2 branded cards. If you don't know this card, its effect states that if this card's in your hand or a graveyard, you can send a Fallen of Albaz, which you're probably not doing, but you can send a branded spell or trap from your hand or deck, and if I send it from the hand, I can special summon this card. The deck is the Upstart, basically Upstart Goblin for this card. But the hand effect can come up sometimes if you especially need a body on board. Maybe you're pushing damage or you're trying to find a way to get to a Chimera line. This is like an easy way to get there without using a normal summon. And because I have branded cards, I can special him on the board and push for game. And he recognizes this. GG. I won with 0 cards in deck, which is crazy. Oh. And this duel was actually from today. This is like a 10-turn duel versus Runic Stun. Doing my dailies in Diamond 1. I don't know. I mean, I guess people have fun like doing the Runic Stun strategies, and I guess you know, some people just scoop pretty fast to them, so you could have the chance to do those dailies too, especially the trap one, and maybe the destroy cards one. But yeah, this duel is crazy. Dude. Also, card of Demise. I don't know about you guys, but this card has got to go. Like, this card is literally just a free +2. Like, just draw 3 fresh new cards. Like, for essentially free for any back row deck. Which is, like, insane advantage. So I use the Medora, shove back the 2 Runic cards to prevent him from drawing 2. Special summons, activate Maxi, see if I can get a better draw. I don't really get anything useful. Flip Cyberstein for Natura Exterior. Honestly, at this point I thought I was screwed. But pretty much I have to play around whether or not he has the I think the runic spell that like pops a card or like negates a monster, like I don't remember what it was. It's like one of those. If he has like a runic card to interrupt my Albaz fusing with the Exterio, I'm basically screwed. He actually has something else. Well, something other than Heavenly Prison. This is honestly the weirdest play I've seen. He manually tribute summons Heavenly Prison to open up the runic, the extra monster zone to put runic spells in grave by special summoning Hugin out, which is, I don't think I've ever seen that one before, but that's kind of crazy. So I'm basically walling up here. I think like one thing I remember like hearing once is that like I guess the reason why I didn't want to do anything there is because like I kind of wanted to see like if I could get some like maybe like better draws, because like right now my hand's kind of like trash, I'm not gonna lie. But the thing about Runic is that they kind of have to go out of their way to force themselves to use Runic cards. Like a lot of their best Runic cards are now semi-limited, so a lot of the ways to interact and draw more cards relies on interacting with you. If you don't do anything to interact with them, you could try to, like, you know, use some turns to try and just stall out, get a better hand. You know, wait until it's time to strike. Natural Poly, funnily enough, for section not bad. Solemn Judgments me, like, whatever, I'll wait next turn. Any card of demise, okay. Okay, now my hand is looking good. I have 2 ways to poly. A way to avoid back row, and maybe to get Chimera off the board. I have multiple ways to summon. I have a variety of different monsters to use as Chimera material, and I also have a way to put Albion on board, if I really need to. So I go for another normal summon Albez play, and honestly, I'm not even sure like how I feel about the skill drain. Well, it does 2 things. It puts him at 1,000 life points, but also it does prevent me from making Mirror Jade from the Exterio, but at the same time, it turns off his own Exterio and his Hugin. So this is like a little bit awkward. So once I recognize this, I actually think it's a little bit like more winnable because like, since his exterior is also negated, I mean, there's a funny interaction that you'll see with his exterior that he abuses to still continue doing his runic stuff. But him flipping skill drain is a little bit helpful because I actually have a lot of tools to play around it. I'm not running Comedy, but what I am running is Branded in Red, ways to recycle Branded in Red, and I'm also running Snow. So it's definitely a possibility for me to play around skill drain, leave it up on the field, but use it as a way to hinder my opponent as well, while trying to play around it. And you'll see it gets kind of crazy this game. Rips Keeper, I don't care. Yeah, I used Tragedy to add back Retribution. At the time, I wasn't really like paying too close attention to my graveyard, but I had not realized that I didn't actually have anything relevant in the graveyard. So this Retribution will be entirely useless, and it would have been actually much better for me to keep the Tragedy in the graveyard. But that's just a small blunder. He goes Reasoning. I call level 10. Honestly, I'm not too sure what I should have done. I mean, I saw Lord of the Heavenly Prison, so I thought he was maybe playing multiple. Turns out he's not. Yeah, he hits max C, but it does like absolutely nothing except just wall up. I mean, I guess that's all he really needs. And you'll see the interaction I was talking about earlier. Exterio banishes cards and sends cards from the top of his deck as cost. So basically he can chain Exterio under skill drain to send cards from his deck to his graveyard. So he can actually fill his graveyard manually by just using more runics. Granted, he does kind of like mill his own deck, so it can like cut him off of some key cards if he banishes like unluckily, but this is basically like Reasoning, but he can chain it whenever he wants to and just mill one, and just do that constantly and fill his graveyard with runic spells, which is going to be really, really annoying because I definitely cannot counter that, cause, with like the volume of the amount of cards he's milling. You milled most of my Ishizu at this point. I send Opening, which would help me help protect me against like any destruction, which will definitely be really helpful later. I actually thought that I had more opening. I had a second opening in my deck, but it turns out it was banished. I wasn't paying attention to that much. But yeah, I go for a 2-pop Chimera play here. Like, I just need as much removal as possible, and I could use this Branded in red as a way to dodge, I guess, the skill drain by making it resolve off the field. My opponent had called by here. I maybe could have been screwed, but doesn't have it. Oh. I think I misread Exterior. It actually banishes from the graveyard. So you could just banish like a bunch of useless cards. Luckily he mills a Rivalry, which is pretty nice because I just get FDK'd if he draws that. So I'm not too sure if this was correct here, but I go for Dramaturge. Initially I was going to go for Adlib, which could have been more useful, because the Adlib can summon the Dramaturge itself, and then I could use the Adlib and the Chimera to summon like a Despia monster. So I have a 3k body and a 2.5k body, but it's, you know, whatever. And then I could use the Adlib for, not Adlib, the Dramaturge for more fusing. So the pretty worrying thing part is the fact that he actually banished 7. He milled Snow off the top, which is kind of worrying because actually, like, I'm trying to push for game here, and flipping my monsters face down actively hinders that. I guess in his case he could have like banished his own skill drain, but I maybe he forgot. And this actually causes him to summon a Snow, but only use it as a body. He doesn't actually flip anything face down to prevent me from like attacking or anything like that. But and while also turning off his own skill drain from screwing him over. But what that means is that he basically only has this as a body. And at this rate, I was like, dang, like I got really close to like maybe pushing for lethal, but he actually had Snow. And yeah, I have a Retribution. I wish I had the Graveyard, but I do happen to have another Branded in red. It kind of depends on what my opponent like draws into this next turn. And he goes Pot of Duality, and he draws his 3rd Fountain. He has 2 in graveyard. He could go for the oh wait, I guess he can't go for the level 4 Runic Fusion because it would be negated under skill drain. And also, like, for example, the reason that I stated earlier, the reason why I didn't attack Snow was because I don't want to give him the chance to remove the skill drain because I actually want it on the board, because he can't play under it right now. But his last card is a Runic card anyways. He has Branded Fusion, which is actually bonkers. But it turns out that he walls up. He actually didn't get any good quality draws, I think. And I'm so lucky that he doesn't actually have the card that pops the spell. The worst thing about the field spell is that it's actually interruptible by removal. So luckily he doesn't have the spell and trap removal, but if he did, I would have definitely been screwed because I need a way to poly, like now. And he flips TC Boo. This doesn't actually do anything because I'm playing Branded. I go for a 2-pop Chimera play like always. And then I go for Branded in red to remove the Chimera, like I said before. And I make sure to get back Albaz because what I'm going to do is go was a make Mirror Jade off of the Albaz and the Chimera. And so now I decide to pop a skill drain because now I feel like I can actually start removing cards and maybe like push for lethal. So this is actually not a play that I was expecting to make. I thought I like just screwed myself up because like I actually didn't have enough for lethal. Because there's a couple of factors here. My opponent has a runic card, like Gary. Because I popped the skill drain, they can now use the Gary as a way to retrieve back the fountain, and then they could go back and to do all their runic stuff. And you know, I guess the snow is still on board, and I could keep it there. But they could definitely crash it and try and do stuff with like shenanigans with their banishing to try and like disrupt me using cards that they useless cards that they milled. But I ended up recognizing that I actually have an interesting play here. And I thought a little bit hard about this to get me out of this like situation. It's not something that has ever come up for me. It's probably not something that comes up with for most people. But I play Sprin the Iron Dash Dragon, like I said before, as a way to special summon Kit at the end phase, or Albaz. But the plus side is that this card also has an effect where you can move the card to another monster zone, and it will destroy all the cards, all other face-up cards in that column. Oh. I actually misplayed then because I thought this destroyed all cards. Rereading it again, I think my opponent also thought that this destroyed what is it? All cards in the column as well. So I guess he panic runicked. Yeah, see, he actually has Slumber. He could actually prevent himself by getting lethaled here by, I believe, slumbering, like not for Gary, but actually using Slumber on a monster to prevent it from attacking. But I guess he prioritizes the Gary getting the fountains back because it actually enables him to play the game. But it turns out that you know, moving Sprint over and not using the Runic Slumber to protect himself actually summon Gary instead. I can just remove this card pretty easily, and there's also one thing that he doesn't realize is that I actually have another monster. Because the Gary got forced out, I have the Masquerade in the graveyard who can special summon itself back. So because of that whole shenanigans, like I don't think me and my opponent like were reading 100% or whatever. This is definitely a 1 in 1,000 game moment where I actually use the sprint effect. But yeah, I managed to out the big fat Lord of Heavenly Prison without actually attacking or banishing. So yeah, bring back Masquerade, thought for a while here and saw the lethal play. Banish the snow so he can't revive it back. And then he does not have enough removal. Yeah. And that was all just to do my dailies. Nice. Well, yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the duels.